landscape of the WWE has changed forever. Anthony the Ant-Man alongside Keith Logan, the Loganator, and you're listening to Ringside Rumble Radio here on Spreaker.com, free on iTunes, and now on iHeartRadio. Loganator, the draft has come and gone. The picks have been made. Raw and Smackdown are officially separated. My friend, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, how have you been? I haven't seen you for some time.
I've been pretty good.
That's
I
good.
enjoyed this draft last night. A little, some good picks, some weird picks.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought it was a good draft.
It was okay.
And to me, I think Raw came out the big winner.
That's what I think. I mean, you had all this talk about SmackDown Live and how they're going to reevaluate and become their own brand and a big brand. And some of the picks kind of had me scratching my head, but I'm not going to complain about it. I'm just going to sit back and watch and
You're going to enjoy yourself.
See what unfolds. I mean, it seems to me that Raw is now a tag team friendly show, I guess you could say. And also, well, they'll probably get the cruiserweight as well, so I guess...
Well, yeah, I think it was this weekend, they announced the rules of the draft, and if you guys were watching the draft but didn't understand the rules, Raw got 3 picks, SmackDown got 2 picks because of the hours of the show.
Mm-hmm.
To my delight, the tag teams were allowed to be picked as 1 pick, which I really enjoyed, or if they wanted to separate them, they were allowed to separate them as well, but to my delight, they kept most of the tag teams together. Also, Monday Night Raw gets the Cruiserweight division. So I guess eventually after the Cruiserweight Classic's over, they get a whole Cruiserweight division on Monday Night Raw, which I thought was really well. If you missed anything from Monday Night Raw, we know the general managers are Mick Foley for Monday Night Raw, Daniel Bryan. Obviously, you were excited about that. On SmackDown. What were your initial thoughts? Let's not get into the draft picks right now, but your initial thoughts of the GMs.
See, I like it. I don't know about Mick Foley, though. I feel Mick Foley he was the GM beforehand. He was the SmackDown general manager when SmackDown was big with the whole Paul Heyman era when he was the writer for WWE. But I don't know how I feel about Mick Foley being the GM. I think maybe somebody else could have been picked. Don't ask me who. But Daniel Bryan, I love the fact that he's still popular amongst fans, as we saw on Monday night.
On Monday.
And also, the one thing, though, that confused me is you have this GM who's calling the Cruiserweight Classic, yet the Cruiserweight division isn't on his exclusive show. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. But, hey, like I said, I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to let it unfold and see what happens because it's too soon for people to be complaining, even though I've already seen people complaining and moaning on the Internet, what else is new? Nobody likes it. They always have to complain. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I thought that the Daniel Bryan, and especially with still how popular he is, what a good pick by Shane McMahon to make Daniel Bryan the GM of SmackDown. It gives it that fresh new look, but somehow, by the way that they picked it, it didn't go the way I thought it would.
No.
With Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon making the picks, I didn't think it was gonna go that way that it did. But with Mick Foley, I kind of have to agree with you. The way Stephanie McMahon is, you'd think that they'd pick somewhat of maybe a heel general manager.
Yeah.
And the feuds between Mick Foley and Triple H and Mick Foley and Stephanie, and I just didn't understand that. I like Mick Foley. I think he's a great person to be general manager. He's done it before. He's been a commissioner before. So I think having him on Raw is a nice. He looks great, by the way. I mean, minus that huge Santa Claus beard, he looks great.
DDP yoga, baby.
Yeah, and I just don't think that Mick Foley is going to be there long term as the general manager. I think somehow, some way, we are going to see Triple H be the general manager by some way. That, I mean, you can even tell during the draft that there was a little like rift that between Mick Foley and Stephanie McMahon. So I don't know how long it's going to last. If it does last long, kudos to the WWE because, seeing Mick Foley on television and what he brings to the table and seeing him in the Attitude Era of how he was general manager then, I think it's a good move.
The only thing I could see is maybe they'll have kind of a tension between them down the road. Maybe that's the storyline they want to build up and have the GM and
one last match again for Mick Foley.
No, I don't think it'll be one last match. I think just basically they'll try and do the comical Mick Foley and Stephanie trying to take things seriously and still play the heel part, and that's going to be your storyline for a while. Same as like how they used to have Stone Cold and Eric Bischoff when they were going at it together.
Yep.
So history seems to repeat itself in the storyline, so to speak. So maybe we'll see that again with two different new characters playing those two different parts. So only time will tell.
Now to the meat and potatoes of the draft. On Monday Night Raw, we had a controversial ending to the World Heavyweight Championship match as Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins pinned each other. And by the way Raw went off the air, I already could tell how the first two picks were going. Seth Rollins was being given the title, and Stephanie McMahon was okay with it. But then Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan came out, and they wanted the title to be returned to Dean Ambrose. So already from there, I kind of got the feeling of which guy was going where. I mean, we could have been surprised, but I kind of got the feeling of which guy was going where, and it stood that way. Seth Rollins ended up being the number 1 draft pick overall. Dean Ambrose went number 2 overall to SmackDown, and this really is ushering in the age of Seth Rollins as the number 1 guy in the company.
Oh, yeah. And it's kind of interesting the fact if Roman Reigns didn't have his he wasn't suspended, would he be the number 1 guy going to SmackDown?
Correct.
We don't know. We don't know. But now it seems like Dean Ambrose is the number 1 guy for the other show.
I think it made perfect sense to split those two up.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, we've seen the Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins story told.
And
we had not seen to its full advantage Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. And we're going to get that because Roman Reigns went to Raw 6th overall.
Mm-hmm. And I think come Sunday is the final nail in the coffin for the whole Shield reunion angle between all three of them type of deal. Because once Battleground is over, everybody goes their separate ways then.
Yep.
I mean, you're on your significant show, you go to one show, and you're on the other one. So it'll be interesting to see. Like you said, I think Roman Reigns and Rollins, they have many long months of feuding going on.
Yes, I feel like we have not seen enough of those two guys go at it.
No.
Now, do they switch? And it has to be, though. It has to be. Rollins and Reigns have to switch places in the fact that Roman Reigns needs to be the heel now. I mean, he got booed, and he wasn't even there.
Well, you're the one who said before, it doesn't matter about heel or face. So, I mean, you could have the two guys just hate each other. I mean, they still want...
so they both heels.
It's been done before.
I can go with that. But then, who's your number one face for Raw?
That's a good question. Because there's plenty of guys. You're not going to see Brock Lesnar on numerous nights on Raw. The New Day has kind of run its course. I mean, they're still all together.
Do you go with the first person who was drafted out of NXT by Raw? Do you go with Finn Balor?
You could, but you also have two other guys lurking in the shadows who have history with Finn Balor who could possibly be like, hey, we had history in New Japan. Our former leader is now on SmackDown. Let's get the band back together and let's form the club to the fullest.
And that's one of the teams that got split up. The club got split up as AJ Styles went 4th overall, and that's saying a lot when someone picks AJ Styles 4th going to SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
So good for AJ Styles. The club goes to Raw, and also now Finn Balor's in Raw. So do we now see the Balor Club?
It'll be interesting to see. I think it'll be great for merchandising. I think it'll be great for TV. I think if you want a fresh new outlook on Raw and get people excited again, why not? You're not going to be pushing Sheamus anytime soon or the Big Show, who was drafted over to Raw. And I think the sky's the limit for this one.
Well, if the Balor Club is true, and if they are heel, then Seth Rollins has to be face, because you can't have a whole bunch of heels on Monday Night Raw. It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
But let's go through the top 10 picks. We're just kind of scattering them.
Mm-hmm.
But Seth Rollins overall number 1. Dean Ambrose number 2. Surprisingly, Charlotte number 3. They're giving some emphasis on the women's division. Charlotte, the champion, goes 3 to Raw.
And it's interesting because Mick Foley has always been very outspoken about the women's division on social media, and now that he's the GM, will that tie into the fact that there's more exposure with the women's division on Raw?
Yep. Like we said, number 4, AJ Styles to SmackDown. Finn Balor, the first NXT guy drafted, goes to Raw. And starting the second rounds, Roman Reigns went to Raw. John Cena, not on Raw anymore. He's ending up on SmackDown now.
Which I think was very well, because what you want is you want people to tune to SmackDown, and you have these little kids who basically adore John Cena, and you have other older fans that adore John Cena. So what better way to get people to watch SmackDown than to have John Cena on the SmackDown Live?
Yeah, the second round of picks was veteran time. It was time to pick the veterans after going after the picks that they really wanted. Brock Lesnar will be exclusive to Monday Night Raw only, as he goes as the number 8th pick. Number 9, Randy Orton to SmackDown. And now at SummerSlam, we have Raw versus SmackDown, Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton.
Yeah, but see, the one thing I don't understand is he's a short-term employee. I don't see why you would have him on just Raw. I would put him in the category with The Undertaker, The Rock, where they could just go wherever they please. But like I said before, I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to let it ride out.
But what's the purpose of having Brock Lesnar go back and forth when he's only coming for a month or two to fight one person?
Well, it could be the same thing about The Undertaker. Why have him as a part?
He wasn't drafted.
But why wouldn't he be then? Were you going to put him on SmackDown and have him go up against Alberto Del Rio or John Cena or Dean Ambrose?
He wasn't drafted. He's not a part of this right now.
I'm saying
there's no Undertaker sighting.
I'm saying why isn't he in that category? That's what I'm saying.
What category, though?
As the part-time wrestler, because he technically is a part-time wrestler.
Right. But none of the part-timers besides Brock Lesnar were drafted.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Why was he drafted into Raw, where he should be kind of floating in between, because he's not a regular. He's not there weekly.
He's more regular than The Rock and The Undertaker.
True. But we're not going to see him until SummerSlam, so he'll probably, I'll say, maybe about... So is he going to go over to SmackDown then and have a feud with Randy Orton?
This happened before, though.
I know, but I'm just saying that defeats the whole purpose again, like we said last week, about having it broken up down the middle and nobody interacting type of deal.
You know that we are going to have Raw and SmackDown go at each other at certain pay-per-views.
I'm sure they're going to bring back bragging rights if they're going to do this.
I'm just excited that Clash of the Champions is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I've been waiting for, and I hope that's true. I hope it's like it says on Ticketmaster, that is Clash of the Champions. To much of everyone's delight, the New Day, I keep saying that, but it is true. To everyone's delight, the New Day stick together. Going to Raw, Stephanie McMahon